We left because we were no longer safe.
Are not Palestinian, you fucking moron, you racist piece of shit. Because Iraq and the pan-Arabic nationalist movements that arise out of Zionist
You are
violence
out of your
is not
mind
about
because they were forced out. The vast majority went to the fucking Arabs. The anti-Semitic Arabs.
There you go.
What?
The Istiklal Party, which wanted to expel the Jews from Iraq and confiscate the properties. And another hand grenade was lobbed into the Masoud Hashem Tov synagogue, and there 4 people were killed. And he was a criminal who had a grudge against the Jews, and it had nothing to do with the Mossad.
Did you hear that? The first 2 had nothing to do with the Mossad. But let's continue to listen to the respected scholar, Avi Klein, you fucking liar.
Ethan.
Nope, you listen to this fucking historian. Yes, you said they left by choice. They left because of Zionism. They left because they were being threatened. Let's hear what your respected historian has to say, you liar.
That's right.
Listen.
If all this is true, the main reason for the exodus was not the bombs, it was persecution by the government. And I concede that. It's not part of my argument that the bombs were the main reason for the liquidation of this community. But my answer to my Zionist critics is, even if I knew for certain that not a single Iraqi Jew left Iraq to go to Israel because of the bombs, I would still think this is a real indictment of the state of Israel, because Israel was created to provide a safe haven for Jews, not to be harassing and threatening Jews in other countries.
By the way, he said, and I'll quote it for you, "We did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe." He wrote that in his book, 3 Worlds. Have you read that book?
No, I have not read 3 Worlds.
Okay, well, you're using a lot of source from it. It's a book that he wrote about his migration.
Only book he wrote about this. But go on.
Have you read any of the other ones?
Yes.
Really? Which ones?
The book that I'm referencing is from the Iron Wall.
3 Worlds, okay? He writes about his time in Iraq.
Memoirs of an
Writes
Arab
about his
Jew.
time
It's the
in
newest
Israel.
book, I know.
He writes about his time in the UK. In 3 Worlds, he writes about his own family, and he describes their departure from Iraq as traumatic, disorienting, and not voluntary. They were not proud Zionist migrations. They were leaving out of fear.
Ethan.
He said that himself.
Ethan.
He said, "We did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe."
You are failing to comprehend a very important reason why I brought up Avi Shlaim, by the way. And here's...
Yeah, because you think he supports your claim, but he absolutely does not.
No,
that's why, because you're a fucking liar.
He absolutely does.
Contend with what I said.
Let me explain.
No. Contend with what I'm saying. He said, "We did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe." Do you want to explain what he meant by that? Explain what he meant by saying we didn't leave because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe.
Okay.
Explain to me.
I can't wait to bring up Avi Shlaim on the broadcast to make you fucking look like a dumbass.
I can't wait too. And now explain what he means by that. We did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe.
Are not Palestinian, you fucking moron, you racist piece of shit. Because Iraq and the pan-Arabic nationalist movements that arise out of Zionist violence
out of your
is
mind.
not about Palestinians. You
okay, so
cannot
what
make
did the
this
Jews in
comparison.
Iraq have to do with fucking Israel? You bigot. You are so out of your mind.
Iraqis,
dude, you screaming and grandstanding doesn't mean you're right.
Iraqi government's racism during the pan-Arabic nationalist movements as a vindication for why, or a comparison as to why Israel had to do the Nakba.
Do you think
fucking
that
racist piece of shit?
Thanks,
Do you think Iraq? Do you think all Arabs have one fucking mind? Is that what you think?
Why the fuck were the Iraqi Jews leaving Iraq in fear?
Of course there were Iraqi Jews that left Iraq in fear.
Because why? Because why? Answer the question. You want to call me racist? Why were Iraqi Jews leaving to go to Israel?
You're a fucking moron who doesn't understand.
That's why they left. They left because I'm a fucking moron.
That Arabs are not one-minded.
Hasan, you coward.
That there were numerous pan-Arabic nationalist movements.
Answer the question. You're going to call me racist, but you won't answer. Why did the Iraqi Jews leave Iraq?
There were numerous reasons
because of
why the Israeli
anti-Semitism. They hated Jewish people that had nothing to do with Israel.
Dude, shut
they were
the fuck
forced
up,
to leave.
dude.
They were
Shut
chased
up.
out. They lived
They
there for
hated
thousands
Jewish
of
people.
years.
Yes,
They had
everyone
businesses.
hated
They had
Jewish
homes
people.
that they were
It's weird.
forced to abandon to go to Israel because it was the only fucking place they could. Why would Iraqis hate the Jews living there if they had nothing to do with Zionism or Israel? Why?
Because settler colonialism was already
That has
taking
nothing to
place
do with
in
them, you
British
absolute
Mandate
fucking
Palestine,
dumbass.
Ethan.
What does that have to do with the Iraqi Jews?
Do you think the Aliyahs were happening initially?
So
Do
it
you
was
think the
there.
Aliyahs
So
were
you're blaming
happening
them? Are you
in
blaming
one-
the Iraqi Jews who had nothing to do with it? What the fuck is your point?
I am
You
not
call me
justifying
racist.
the racism. I'm not justifying it. You're not comprehending my
Yes,
point.
you are. They
I've never
left
justified that.
because
And
the
I've
Iraq
also
turned on them
openly
after
recognized-
1948.
Ethan,
You're materially wrong. You're a liar.
That there were numerous reasons why other countries, I know, hard concept, all Arab, they all
Yeah.
have the same mindset.
I
Other
know. Let's go
countries
over
and their
them,
pan-Arabic
genius.
nationalist movements as states were being
Let's go over them.
designed
In
mostly
Egypt,
mostly by Western nations.
You want to talk facts? Let's talk facts.
Ethan, you don't know.
In
You got
Egypt.
fucking a chat GPT summary. Let me explain to you
Hey,
so
Hasan,
you can
let
fucking not
me-
look like a dumbass.
Okay. Do you want to listen or do you just want to add harm?
No, I want to tell you my perspective.
No,
This is
you wanna
supposed to
talk.
be
That's
an
the problem.
admonishment
You don't
of
wanna
my-
listen.
You're
You've
supposed to be
talked
attacking my
plenty.
perspective.
You called me
clarify
racist,
my
bro. The
position
least you could
so
do is shut the
understand.
fuck up and listen to me talk, okay? The Iraqi Jews left because they were in fear of anti-Semitism. They had nothing to do with Israel or Zionism. The Arabs in Iraq, the Iraqis, turned on them because of what happened in the war in 1948. That had nothing to do with them. So if you want to blame the
not
Jews
just
for their own
1948.
anti-Semitism,
It's
you
not
go
just
right ahead, but that's
1948.
racism. Now let's talk about
I also
Egypt.
recognize that.
No, you're not. You are absolutely not. In Egypt, 75,000 Jews were displaced. Okay?
Ethan,
Following
is
anti-Jewish
Egypt
riots and
Palestine?
bombs in
Is
Egypt.
Palestinians? Is Egypt Palestinians? Is Iraq Palestinians? Why were the Palestinians never
got
allowed
nothing
to
to
return?
do with that.
A
They were
right
forced
that
to go
every
there
single
by
one
the
of these
Arab
have
countries.
offered the Jews that were expelled or left on their own voluntarily.
listen,
These
Hasan.
are completely separate countries.
Nobody's
You
justifying
are
the
packaging them
Nakba.
together to
No,
make a
no one is
horrifying
justifying the
position.
Nakba. I'm explaining how it's fucking insanely racist to discredit the plight, the
No, you're
running
fucking
of
racist because I don't
discrimination.
discredit the plight. I think
But
you're,
I'm not justifying the Nakba. You seem to be justifying why Jews were chased out of their home country.
No, I'm not, Ethan.
Why'd
I'm
they
not
leave?
justifying
Why'd they
that
leave?
at all. You think
Why'd
that,
they leave?
You think that because you want to drive home a point that this is
Why did they
anti-Semitic.
leave their communities that had been there
making-
for 2,000 years, leaving their money,
You will
their
never
businesses, their
understand. I don't
homes?
think
Why
you'll
did they
understand.
leave?
Do you think Iraq is Palestine? Do you think Egypt is Palestine? Do
Nobody's
you think,
defending the Nakba.
Do you think that all Arabs are operating on antiquated anti-Semitism? And if your answer is yes, why
you're
the fuck
complete-
did Jews find the Ottoman Empire to be a safe haven for fucking hundreds
Where's the Ottoman
of years?
Empire?
When the,
Let's talk
when
about the last 100
Christians
years.
in Western
That's great.
Europe
Yeah, the Ottoman
were-
Empire was great for the Jews. Let's talk about the last 100 years. Let's talk about 1948.
Yeah, of course,
Anti-Jewish
of course,
riots
it's
broke
Israel
out
of course.
after the war. Hassan, you need to shut the fuck up and listen, okay?
Oh my
after
God.
the war, after the war, okay, in 1948, there was anti-Jewish riots and bombs in Egypt. Why was that? Because of the Jews. The Jews brought it on themselves. Following the
I
establishment of
never
the
made that
Israel.
inference. What are you talking about?
Of course you did.
No, I didn't. I did not make that inference at all.
So they left because Zionism.
No, Ethan, if you were to listen to my words, and I use them very carefully, even though I get heated
Yes,
sometimes.
careful, right.
Okay? Egypt, Iraq, Morocco, each of these countries where Jews lived in the MENA region all the way to the Levant had different reasons. Some of them were direct pogroms. Others
Lie.
were
You're a liar.
the colonial.
You are a tangibly, historically
Do you think that
proven
Do you think
liar.
that Jews,
And I
just
feel
said
let
that
me
some of them were because of pogroms. You're not hearing anything I'm saying. You're so conditioned into saying
no,
liar
no.
that you're
The amount
undermining
that
your own
left,
point.
the amount that left because of Zionism was minute. They were chased out. They were
Ethan.
forced to become Zionists by their oppressors because they had nowhere else to go. In Egypt, following the establishment of Israel in May 1948,
Ethan, none of these countries are
after
Palestine.
that
None of these
is
countries.
an
these
insanely
countries are-
irrelevant point. A series
Dude,
of
you can't
bombs
make a
targeted Jewish
comparison
areas in
between a
Cairo
planned
between
ethnic
June and
cleansing
September.
campaign and other
They killed
countries.
70
That's my
Jews,
point.
injured 200. They confiscated Jewish-owned businesses and synagogues were attacked and destroyed. Okay?
Ethan,
In
listen to my
1956, the
words.
Suez
One
Crisis.
is direct violence,
1956.
direct planned violence and an extermination campaign. The other
approximately
is
25,000
hostility.
Jews were
The other is
expelled from
falsely
Egypt.
misplaced hostility towards
25,000 Jews were
from
expelled.
other countries. You
So
don't
are you
have
blaming
to-
them?
You don't understand
Hold on.
this, and you
Hold on.
will
Are you
never
blaming the
understand this, I don't
Jews for
think.
getting? Are you blaming the Jews for being expelled from Egypt? 25,000
No,
of them.
Ethan. If you listen to
Okay.
my words, you would understand.
So what is it I exaggerated about? 900,000 Jews were displaced.
Because you are making a comparison with different countries
No, I'm not.
versus one singular force that planned an extermination campaign, planned an ethnic cleansing campaign. Other countries and the reaction to it, or other countries and the previous hostility towards Jews have nothing to do with Palestinians. So making this
Of
comparison
course not. That's
is
why it's
gross.
anti-Semitic.
It's like
That's why it's anti-Semitic. It has nothing to do with Palestine, but they still got kicked
It's
out for
like-
being Jewish.
dude,
That's
Ethan,
literally what
Ethan, I don't think you
anti-Semitism.
understand. It's like
1,000
saying-
Jews
it's
in
like
Egypt were
claiming
arrested and
that the
detained without
Holocaust is
charges.
similar.
The government
It's like
seized
claiming the Holocaust is
500
similar.
Jewish-owned businesses and froze bank accounts. The
Ethan.
expelled Jews were compelled to sign a declaration donating their property to the Egyptian state and were allowed to take only minimal personal belongings. In Algeria, 130,000 Jews were expelled. Upon the independence,
That's not Palestine. They're not. They're just
dude,
Arabs. They're not the same
okay,
fucking
right.
people.
So my point is very simple. They were expelled from their homes because of anti-Semitism.
Ethan, you used Egypt as an
Sorry,
example.
what is
Half of
wrong
these
about
countries
that?
You're pointing
What is
to in
wrong
the
with what
time
I
when
just said? They
Jews
were
leaving
expelled.
Were literally
Hasan,
controlled
please,
by
you've got to
English
fucking
and
answer a
French,
question.
by the English
They were-
and French colonial
They were
occupations.
expelled.
What are you talking about?
They were expelled because of anti-Semitism. What did I say wrong?
Oh my God.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Algeria was under French occupation. It is the design where the French occupied Algeria did not squash the attempts of expelling Jews. I'm not saying that there wasn't actually
Most Algerians were
anti-Semitic
French
action
citizens and went to
that
France.
caused Jews to
Let's-
feel unsafe, Ethan. I'm saying
95%
that
of Algeria's
you are
140,000
putting on
Jewish population-
individual, often sometimes Western powers and what they allowed in those countries on the Palestinian plight when you make this comparison. That's what I'm saying.
Is it anti-Semitic
It's like
for
saying
Jewish people
the
to get kicked
Armenian
out of their home?
genocide, right? The Turkish, the Ottoman Empire and the forces and the Ottoman genocide that they conducted, a mass extermination campaign, is because other fucking random countries where Armenians
No,
were
Iraq
were
happened
also
after
getting
independence and as
equally
of
dispelled, or
Jerusalem.
Turks were getting dispelled
Dude,
in other countries.
The
That's
pogrom
ironically
happened
the
as
same
a
fucking
direct
thing that's the way that it was
result
taught
of
in
the
the
war, bro.
past. That it was a
By the way, did you say-
necessary voluntary migration.
By the way, did you?
because-
Oh my God, bro! Did you say Anne Frank died before she could resist? I don't know if that was a fever dream.
Wait, I'm saying that like. Would you have an issue with Anne Frank if she actually was able to?
Sorry, I just thought it was an insane thing to say. I'm not trying to litigate it. In Tripoli,
Wait, why'd you
anti-Jewish
bring it up?
rights
What's your point?
broke out
Well,
under
my
Israel
question for you
victory.
was, would you
Mob
hate on Anne Frank
Jewish
if she
communities
wasn't a
got mobbed.
pacifist?
6,000 Jews were evacuated. Homes were destroyed. Synagogues were burned. In Morocco, 250,000 Jews were expelled. Anti-Jewish riots broke out in 1948. You'll notice all of these, most of these pogroms are happening in 1948 as a direct result of the war. The Arabs turned on their Jewish populace out of anti-Semitism, period, point blank. June 7 to 8, 1948, in northeastern Morocco, following the declaration of the State of Independence, the State of Israel on May 14, 1948, anti-Jewish riots erupted in the town of Jarada. These towns were significant transit points for Moroccan Jews seeking to immigrate. 47 Jews were killed, many were injured. Jewish homes and businesses were looted and destroyed. In 1950, 1960, harassment and immigration. The year following 1948 riot, Moroccan Jews faced increased pressure. These factors contributed to a significant immigration of Jews from Morocco. Immigration to Israel was banned in 1959. But before that, 274,000 Moroccan Jews immigrated primarily to Israel. Yemen and Aden.
Remember when you
Yemen,
said you weren't a Zionist?
50,000.
Remember when you said you
riot.
weren't a Zionist? These are direct Zionist talking points.
This is historical facts, literally spread by your very own Avi Schleim, who, if I'll quote him back to you, said, we didn't leave
Avi
because we
Schleim's
were
assessment
Zionists.
On top of
We
this,
did not
Avi
leave
Schleim's
because we
assessment
were
on top of
Zionists.
this
We
is not
left
that it
because
was
we were afraid.
appropriate, Ethan. That's the difference. If you asked Avi Schleim whether it is comparable to say the Nakba and the
Who said?
900,000 Jews that
Who said?
left
I'm not defending
from
the Nakba.
separate countries, he would laugh at you.
Your
Do you not
failure
understand?
to
I know you're
acknowledge
trying to
the
fucking
trauma
clip farm
of
here,
both
but you
groups
don't
is the
understand.
reason why you are a radical fucking propagandist liar. Both trauma needs to be acknowledged by both groups. There's two things that need to be true for this ever to be resolved peacefully.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Palestinian
Israel should keep
self-determination
doing a
and the
genocide.
Israelis' right to have secure borders.
Zionism was
As long as you ignore that,
You're right.
there will always be war. Palestinians will always die, and you will continue to make money from it. Operation Magic Carpet. Jews were secretly airlifted to Israel due to rising hostility.
It's so interesting because
50,000 were relocated. In Tunisia, 130,000 after
the PLO did recognize that, and they wanted those countries to actually do a right to return for all Jews. Why did Israel stop that from happening, Ethan? Don't you think that Zionism is the problem here?
Avi Schleim
what
said,
happened?
quote,
They didn't fucking send you that clip? They didn't send you that fucking
Avi
piece of
Schleim-
information? So the PLO,
Avi
Yasser
Schleim-
Arafat, the people that don't care about Jewish plight, actually did see
the guy who
wrongdoing that
oversaw
happened
the
to
second
Jews and
Intifada?
wanted
What the
Jews
fuck
to
are
be
you
able
on
to go
about?
back and do a right to return if they wanted to do so into their nation of origin, as a matter
I'm
of fact.
talking about the
And yet
flights,
Israel was
bro.
the one who didn't
You
want that to
deny the
happen.
flight
Why
of
is that the
Middle
case,
Eastern
Ethan?
Jews. No, you deny the flight. You deny the trauma of
I don't
Middle
deny
Eastern
the
Jews.
flight, Ethan.
You
You don't
absolutely
understand.
deny the
You are
trauma.
attributing-
No, you
you are
deny
making
that
a
they left by.
comparison
You've tried to
between-
say that they left by choice. That is a gross
No,
historical
there are Jews that
inaccuracy.
left by choice. That is true.
Yes, some did.
There are
Of
Jews
the
that absolutely
900,000, the
left by
vast majority
choice.
left because they were afraid.
Ethan,
Because they were being
there
discriminated
are
against.
Jews
That is a historical fact.
Have
Six-Day
you ever
War
actually
aftermath.
listened to a clip of me talking about this?
What?
Oh my God, you have no idea what my perspective on this is. You're just fucking
Hey, of course.
yelling at nothing.
Well, what are you doing right now?
Oh
What are you
my
wasting time
God.
for, buddy?
This is the reason why you're repeating.
No, I
shit
have
that
heard you
not
talk about
fucking-
it
the
time
shit
and
that
time
I don't
again.
actually believe.
Bro, you are continually, okay, not
Oh my
acknowledging
God.
the trauma of Middle Eastern
Oh my
Jews.
God.
You characterize it like they left.
Have you ever listened,
Yes,
have
I've
you ever
seen
listened
it.
to anything that's not 30 seconds long?
Yes, bro.
From me?
That's
Have
so
you?
ironic that you're saying that as
I'm
you
literally in
misquote
front of
Avi
you right now,
Schleim,
and
who
I'm
said
trying to
he
describe my
fled because
position
he was
that I have
afraid
made clear
and not because
numerous
of Zion.
times
Here's the
over and
clip.
over.
Why did you not mention the anti-Semitism? You exclusively talk about Zionism being the reason for forcing them out. Why do you deny that they were expelled by force, the vast majority of them?
Ethan, if you think that that is the entirety of my perspective on this matter,
Illuminate me.
You please need to stop talking and listen to the amount of times that I've talked about this. Okay?
Oh, just explain yourself.
I'm trying, but you keep
I just watched a
interjecting.
clip of you being pretty dismissive about the flight. And by the way, you've done it this whole time. You say that
No,
Zionism
I'm
was the
dismissive
main
about
force.
the aspect that this is beneficial to the Zionist project across the board because Israel wants all Jews to be constantly fucking terrified in any other country that's not Israel so that they can actually go and either support Israel if they're not in Israel or just move to Israel. That is the entire point. That is what Jabotinsky wanted. That is what Herzl wanted. And that is precisely what Benjamin Netanyahu wants as well. So in terms of my explanation or what I come across as dismissive is precisely the role that Israel itself played in this process.
Which
because
was
it was a
minuscule.
mutually beneficial relationship that
Minuscule.
anti-Semitic pogroms did take
Minuscule. What
place.
you fail to acknowledge is that the Jews were forced to become Zionists, not by choice, but by necessity.
Oh my
because the
God.
Arab countries turned on them after the war and
Yes, I
forced
get the
them to
position
go
that
to
you're
the
trying
only
to arrive
state
at, which is
that they
it's
could
a
go to.
necessity for Israel to exist, which is what your
What?
position is, right?
No, it's not about what was allowed or not. The Arabs created 1 million Zionists because they're anti-Semitic after the War of 1948 and fucking the rise of Arab nationalism. Do you deny that?
You brought up Morocco.
Do you
as an
deny what I just said?
Wait, say it again. I
Do
wasn't
you
listening.
deny what
What?
I just said?
Say it again. I wasn't listening.
900,000 Jews, approximately 700 to 900,000, were forced to become Zionists, not by choice, but because they were forced out.
Who
The
forced
vast
them?
majority went to the fucking Arabs. The
There you
anti-Semitic
go.
Arabs.
There you go.
What? There you go. What? That's my point. Are you
I rest
okay?
my case.
Okay. Well, I mean,
No,
you
you're
can.
too fucking delusional to realize what kind of racist nonsense you're fucking
That's
chirping on. That was my
unbelievable,
entire
bro.
point. Thank
It's
you.
historic. I mean, it's historical. You don't know anything of what you're talking about. Avi Schleim, once again, because you don't want to contend, you like to accuse him when it's convenient. He left not because they were Zionists. They left because
Yeah,
they were
fucking
afraid.
Arabs. What was Avi Schleim, by the way?
Yeah, he was an Arab Jew. They didn't see him that way. They kicked his ass out. I'm not saying
Interesting.
fucking Arabs.
Does he not-
There's a reason for it. There was a rise in Arab nationalism following the 1948 war. They blamed their own Jewish populace for what Israel did. That's anti-Semitism.
Arabs,
They had
right?
nothing to do. Do you think
Yeah.
the Iraqi Jews left their 2,000-year-old communities, left their businesses, left their houses because they wanted to go to Israel? Are you fucking mad?
Ethan, remember
you
a while
deny.
back I tweeted and you got really mad when I said that there's a double standard between Islamophobia and
There's
anti-Semitism?
absolutely a double standard, and you exhibit
and
it,
you're
my friend.
participating in it right now without even recognizing that
It's
you're
historical.
doing so.
I mean, I'm just
Yeah, no,
telling
it's
you
just
literally what
historical
happened.
racism. All Arabs are not
They were
responsible.
racist. Do people never get racist? Do people never be? I'm explaining why. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just explaining why. After
No,
the
dude, you don't
1948
understand.
war,
That's not even
the
the point
rise
of
of Arab
contention here.
nationalism
You're having a hard time
created a
comprehending what
lot
I'm
of anti-Semitism, and that's why the vast majority of the Jews, the 900,000 of them, were forced to immigrate. That's a fact. That is a historical fact.
Ethan, I'm sorry to say this, and I don't know if your audience gets this as well, but what you just said earlier is not an accurate reflection of history. It's just pure
How do you know that?
racism.
How do you know that?
You
How do
are
you know that it's
shifting
not
the
real?
blame over to the entirety of
absolutely
Arabs
was
at a
the blame
time
of
when
the
every
Arabs.
single one of these Arab countries with
Absolutely.
their
Who
own
else
version
kicked
of
them out?
pan-Arabic nationalism,
They
half of
kicked
them
them
were
out.
already still controlled, by the way, by fucking European colonial powers like Vichy France.
That was
designing
literally
the
just in
Moroccan
Tunisia.
expulsion
Okay.
program, and you're using that as a similarity between the planned expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians
Yeah, I mean,